Welcome into this week's edition of RNN Talks right here on Racing News Now. As always, I'm your host, Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me this evening as we have an action-packed episode as usual here on RNN Talks. We're back. If you noticed, there was not a pole position on Monday. We mentioned that last week on RNN Talks because there wasn't anything happening over Easter weekend in terms of the series that we follow, so wasn't really anything to recap on pole position. So we took the week off from that, like all the other racing series for the holiday, and we are back now and better than ever. And we had a lot going on this week. We go from really the least busy weekend of the racing season to one of the busiest, as we have ARCA in action this weekend. We have F1, we have IndyCar, we have the Xfinity Series, and we have the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series all in action this weekend. We do have a special announcement for you coming up here at the end of the show as to some special programming here on RNN coming up this weekend, so you want to stick around for that to find out what that is. But not a lot of news to talk about this week. Really, this is going to be mostly a prediction show because there's not really anything to talk about this week. Nothing really has happened. NASCAR did announce the 2019 schedule for the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. No changes whatsoever. Not a single change. Everything in the exact same order that it is this season. The only difference being the off weekend, again for Easter. Obviously aligning with Easter changing every year. 2019, it will be the weekend of April 21st, so that will be the off weekend between Richmond and Talladega in 2019, whereas this year it is between Martinsville and Texas. So that being the only change in the 2019 schedule for the Cup Series. Nothing really to talk about there. Other thing really to talk about here, something to think about. If Kevin Harvick were to win this weekend in Texas, he would tie a record. I take that back. Not a record. He would tie some greats. Wouldn't quite get the record. He would tie Richard Petty and Bill Elliott as being the third guy to win 4 races in the first 7 races of a Cup Series season. Petty did that back in 1975, winning at Richmond, Bristol, Atlanta, and North Wilkesboro, while Bill Elliott did it in 4 weeks consecutively in the 1992 season, Rockingham, Richmond, Atlanta, and Darlington. So if Harvick were to win this weekend in Texas, he would tie them. That is not the longest, or that is not the most wins to start a season by any driver, though Dale Earnhardt did that in 1997, winning 6 of the season's first 8 races. Of course, 87 being the year that Earnhardt won his 3rd of 7 career championships. He would go on to win a total of 11 races that year, that being the most wins he would ever get in a season. So a very strong season in 1987, definitely for Dale Earnhardt. Harvick won't quite be able to get to that, but I mean, there is a possibility he could slide himself securely into second on that list for second strongest start in the history of NASCAR if he were able to win in Texas this week and win next week as well. So I guess we'll have to keep an eye on that and see if that ends up happening. Otherwise, I don't have a lot to talk about here. Nothing going on the NASCAR side of things. Nothing really of note in the open wheel world. Nothing really, nothing all that big in the ARCA world. A few guys making their first starts of the year this weekend in Fairgrounds Speedway in Nashville. Otherwise, though, not a lot going on that front. So we will move along now to predictions, and we will start off. We'll start off with Formula One. They are in Bahrain this weekend, and after the strong start to the season he got off to in Australia, and I think he might be a little jaded about how things ended in Australia. maybe probably should have gotten the win in Australia and didn't, that being Lewis Hamilton. I think Lewis Hamilton backs up his strong performance in Australia and makes up for not picking up the win and picks up his first victory of the 2018 season in Bahrain on Sunday. So Lewis Hamilton wins the Bahrain Grand Prix in Formula One. Now we'll move to the other open wheel side of things this weekend in IndyCar. They're in Phoenix, the ISM Raceway, for the Desert Diamond West Valley Casino Phoenix Grand Prix. That is a mouthful, but we got it out. So, lots of drivers on this list. I feel like oval races might be harder to pick than road courses and street courses on the IndyCar side of things. There are a lot of guys that potentially could win on ovals. I had a hard time picking this one. I actually, to be completely honest, I had to phone a friend on this one. We asked IndyCar correspondent for Racing News Now, Tom Poole, his thoughts on this. Unfortunately, he was not able to actually come on the show tonight, but I was able to pick his brain on this one. And he seems to be of the mind that Scott Dixon will win this weekend in Phoenix. So we're going to go with that. That would not surprise me. Dixon has a very strong history at ISM Raceway. And I think this is the propellant to a very strong season if he were able to win this weekend in Phoenix. So Scott Dixon wins this weekend in the Desert Diamond West Valley Casino Phoenix Grand Prix. That is too many words, but you know what? We'll get through it. No harm, no foul. All right, so that is the open wheel side of things. Now we will move on to the stock car side of things, and we will shift our attention to the ARCA Racing Series presented by Menards. They will be at the Fairgrounds Speedway in Nashville, Tennessee this weekend for their second race of the season. If you remember back, it's been a while. It's been close to 2 months now, a month and a half or so since they had their first race of the season. Michael Self won the first race of the year back in Daytona in that first weekend of Speed Weeks. And we've had a very long period between ARCA races since then. Now we get down into the meat of the season. A lot of short tracks on their schedule. They do have a lot of speedways as well. I mean, they go to places like Charlotte, Talladega, Pocono, Michigan, Chicago, Kansas, those kind of places. But there's also a lot of tracks like this, like the little tracks like Fairgrounds Speedway, Nashville. They go to Salem Speedway in Salem, Indiana, Lucas Oil Raceway, little tiny short tracks like that. So this really is a lot of the season for them. So I think who does well this weekend will be a big indicator as to probably who your championship favorites are this year in the ARCA Racing Series. That being said, if you remember back to our season preview show, do you remember who I picked for the ARCA Racing Series champion for this season? It is the same person I'm going to pick to win this weekend, that being young Natalie Decker. I think this is the weekend she really breaks out. She had a fantastic showing in Daytona for her first time at Daytona. I think she backs that up at Fairgrounds Speedway this weekend, picks up her first win of the season. The first win, mind you, for a female in the ARCA Racing Series history. I think she gets that this weekend, and that is her springboard to a very successful season this year and to a possible championship. Remember, we predicted her as the champion, so this could be what gets her moving in that direction. So Natalie Decker wins this weekend the Music City 200 from Fairgrounds Speedway in Nashville. Now on to the NASCAR side of things. And we will start off with the Xfinity Series, Xfinity and Cup Series, both at Texas Motor Speedway this weekend. The Xfinity Series running the 22nd annual My Bariatric Solutions 300 on Saturday. And we're going to basically do the same thing we do every week with this. We're going to look and see what Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series regulars are in this field. And looking down through this entry list, I see Ty Dillon in the 3-car. I see Ryan Blaney in the 22. I see Jamie McMurray in the 42. And I see Kevin Harvick in the 98. Now, to me, I think there is a very obvious pick in those. And I think I don't think it's a very hard decision here as to who I think will win this weekend, who has the best chance of winning this weekend, that being Kevin Harvick. Remember how much he dominated in the one Xfinity race he ran this season so far in Atlanta. He is just on a hot streak this year. And it doesn't matter what series. It doesn't matter if it's Cup Series or the Xfinity Series. He's on a hot streak. He is fast this year. I think he wins his second race in as many races in the Xfinity Series this weekend in the My Bariatric Solutions 300 from the Texas Motor Speedway. Now we move on to the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. They're in action also from Texas Motor Speedway, the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500. That being the, I'm behind here, the 22nd annual O'Reilly Auto Parts 500. And this one, I don't know that it's as easy of a pick. And I say that, I say the Xfinity race is an easy pick, and it never fails. I say it's an easy pick, and I end up being completely wrong. So, you know what? I don't even know why I throw out the word easy, but I don't think the Cup race is as easy of a pick. In the past, there are some of these guys that I would have had no problem picking, thinking that they would be very, very good chance of winning this race, one of those being Jimmie Johnson. And while he has been improving the last few weeks, I don't know that Jimmie Johnson is really the safe bet at Texas that he would have been a few years ago. And there are other guys in this field that could be decent picks. The problem comes in there's so many of these guys that are kind of easy picks, but kind of not easy picks. So, I'm going to, in saying that, I'm going to slightly go out on a limb. We're going to say that Stewart-Haas Racing continues their very strong start to the season. They've won 4 of the first 6 races. We're going to say they win 5 of the first 7. Oh, but oh no, I'm not picking Kevin Harvick for this. And oh no, I am not picking Clint Bowyer to go back-to-back. No, I am not picking former series champion Kurt Busch. I'm picking Eric Almirola to win his first race of the season, his first race for Stewart-Haas Racing. He has had a good start to the season, albeit I don't know that we've really looked at him as a race winner yet this season. I think this is the weekend that he breaks out. His team has, all 4 cars in that stable have been extremely fast to start this season. Clint Bowyer finally broke his winless streak. I think Eric Almirola breaks his winless streak this weekend in Texas and continues the extremely hot start to the season for Stewart-Haas Racing. So, just to recap our winners for the whole weekend. Lewis Hamilton wins the Bahrain Grand Prix for Formula One. Scott Dixon wins the Desert Diamond Casino Phoenix Grand Prix for the IndyCar Series. I can never get that completely out. Natalie Decker wins the Music City 200 for the ARCA Racing Series. Kevin Harvick wins the My Bariatric Solutions 300 for the Xfinity Series. And Eric Almirola wins the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500 for the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. Now, before we wrap up for tonight, one special announcement. Racing News Now, you've kind of gotten used to, as we've started out here, we've just been these two shows. We've been Pole Position and RNN Talks. Well, we are expanding a bit now. We are getting a little bit closer to what I was hoping RNN could be as we continue to go into the future. That being live at the track coverage. So this weekend, we will be in Nashville for the ARCA Racing Series action from Fairground Speedway Nashville for the Music City 200. All the on-track action will be contained on Saturday. That weather permitting. The weather forecast does not look fantastic for Nashville on Saturday, so hopefully we're able to get everything in on Saturday and in fully that day, and it's not pushed back to whenever. Hopefully it all goes as scheduled on Saturday. But yes, we will be there. We'll be interviewing some of your favorite drivers from the ARCA Racing Series from the garage. We'll be doing garage walks. We'll be doing all kinds of stuff. We will have a full recap in its own video coming up probably on Monday. I haven't set an exact schedule for that yet, but we will have an actual complete breakdown of the race with video from the race, with video of the winner, everything like that. We will have that up here on Racing News Now. Like I said, probably on Monday. I don't have an exact schedule lined out for that yet because I'm just not sure how the schedule for the weekend will break down, how long it'll take me to edit, that kind of thing. But we're shooting for probably Monday night-ish, maybe going up somewhere around pole position, maybe in conjunction with pole position, maybe just before pole position. I'm not really sure. So that'll be something to look forward to on Monday as well, and that'll be something to look forward to on Saturday, as long as all the weather cooperates and everything happens at Nashville that is supposed to happen on Saturday. We'll be bringing you stuff live right here on YouTube from Nashville. We'll have some live videos going up. Whenever we find somebody to talk to, we'll just go up with a live video. We'll talk to them for a few minutes, and you'll have their thoughts right there from Fairgrounds Speedway Nashville. I'm excited about this. I'm very excited for this. This gets us moving in the direction that I was really hoping we could get Racing News Now, and this will not be the last race that we do. This will be the first of many. I have much more planned going forward, so we'll talk about those once we get through Nashville and through all of that, and we'll get your thoughts on how things went down there in Nashville. So at that, this has been RNN Talks. I will see you hopefully on Saturday from Nashville, as long as the weather cooperates, and then again on Monday for the pole position. So, I'm your host, Garth Allen, as always, for Racing News Now.